What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? I'm JC Owens, and this is Rock My World, episode 28, Lucifer, Father of the Enlightenment. Now, most of you were taught about the Enlightenment in school, I'm sure, and I wonder, if you, like I, ever wondered why it was called the Enlightenment. Well, it's because of that word light, illumination, the seeking of freedom to do whatever you want, the ideology of the rebel, if you will, right? Well, folks, as per usual, this is born out of the mystery school doctrines. You see, in the Renaissance, it was, the rebirth of pagan thought and a lot of these pagan ideals. I believe I've mentioned that on here before. That's what the Renaissance was. Well, by the Enlightenment, this is the application of these pagan ideals. That's the applying them to people's day-to-day. Most will know that the coffee shops have started to pop up around this time. And, 18th century thinkers are all talking in these coffee shops. And what are they talking about? Oh, well, they're talking about the mystery school doctrines. They're talking about secret knowledge, Gnosticism, Kabbalah, and all these ancient systems of magic that were used since time immemorial. The philosophy of fire, which, again, there comes that light thing again. You ever wonder why there's a statue of Prometheus in Rockefeller Center in front of all those world flags? Well, it's because that Prometheus, aka Lucifer, aka Venus, the morning star, that bright little star you see in the sky in the morning, that, stops at those 5 points in its little circular trip through the sky, that's where the pentagram comes from, the pentacle star. It's a representation of Venus itself. And Venus, thus, is related to Lucifer, to Prometheus, to Ishtar, and so many more in at least in this modern system that we have here, where all of these deities have kind of been merged into one. Remember how I was telling you about the fact that they want a one-world coexist religion? Well, this is where it comes from, this idea. It's within the mystery school doctrine itself. You see, they believe that all religions are born of the same religion, the same core religion, and then after the Tower of Babel, they were split into pieces, each one having a little bit of the mysteries of the ancient world baked in. And they weren't wrong, completely anyway. You see, the religion they're talking about is the one that was practiced by the people who built the Tower of Babel, by Nimrod. And it's what encouraged them to build that tower. And yes, it was scattered all across the world, and it's what allows us to have access to all this technology. Why does the battery in this camera work? Well, it's because of that same positive and negative, Masonic idea. Right? That's where they got all of this from. The church, up to that point, had suppressed magic. It had suppressed a lot of this, this esoteric thought that would allow you to really build this kind of technology. And the ancients had put a restriction on these things for a good reason, because humanity cannot be trusted with it. As soon as we get to getting into these doctrines and really applying them, we get brought back here. You see, from the mystery school perspective, civilization has been destroyed at least 16 times, they say. A cataclysm comes along and wipes us out right about the time that we get ourselves raised back up to a level of high technology. This is why you have the ancient Indian epics talking about Vimana and flying craft and all this other kind of stuff. From their perspective, we've been here before. And from their perspective, this is where we belong. We belong as our own gods. right? And this is born out of the Luciferian doctrine. The Luciferian doctrine says that, hey, why should I follow anybody? Why should I follow God or any other man? I'm God, right? That's what they believe. They believe that they should be in charge of everything. It's just like, why did Aleister Crowley start the OTO? Well, because he graduated. He realized that, the ultimate level of the Luciferian doctrine was to become like Lucifer himself and start your own little cult. Same with Jared Leto or L. Ron Hubbard, who started Scientology. Did you know that Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard were friends? That they practiced rituals together? Or what about Parsons over at JPL, like the rocket guy? Yeah, he was practicing with them too. See, they did the Babylon ritual trying to bring in the Antichrist way back in the day when Crowley was still alive, and Parsons too. Ended up, like both of them said, that they ended up summoning a demon they could not get rid of. Parsons was convinced that the demon had shown him his death, which would have been an explosion, and guess what? Shortly after that, Parsons was killed in an explosion. These things are, they're not something to be played around with. As I explained to you in another episode, Sir Francis Bacon and some of the people of his day helped separate the occult side of the mystery school doctrine from its more scientific physical side. It's less esoteric and more exoteric version. And that was to get everyone to adopt it. That was to get everyone to adopt it and help them. And we did. It slipped it right under the noses of most Christians and people that were supposed to traditionally oppose this kind of stuff. Slipped right under their noses. Convenience was way too tempting. The technology and the convenience was way too tempting. Those of you who may be familiar with the Wind in the Willows from when you were a kid. And what was it that was Toad's problem? Toad was obsessed with motor cars and all this technology. Well, that is actually a real page out of history, because that's what happened to Europe's nobility. These people came along with technology and it entranced them. And they sold us all out for it. They sold us all out for it, and this is what led to the revolutions. It allowed the mystery school to slowly infiltrate all of these nations and bring down throne and altar right from the inside. You see, this is why the Fabians use the wolf in sheep's clothing as their symbol, because they're another branch of this mystery school group, and that's the main way that the mystery school operates. It will take whatever the main religions of the area are, and they will assimilate it. They'll take on the garb, the rituals, but while in secret, when nobody's looking, they'll practice their actual religion. And see, unlike Christianity or some of these other religions that say, hey, you can't have any other God besides me, you can't run around saying you're a Christian and not really being, or you'll get in trouble. Well, that doesn't apply to them. In their teachings, it's perfectly acceptable to do that in order to accomplish your goals. It's perfectly acceptable to lie and be like, oh no, I'm a Christian, or I convert, and then not actually convert. This is why you had the Roman Catholic Church and kind of a knee-jerk reaction start up the Inquisition. They were looking for these people. They were looking for them. If you read the letters, even written by someone like George Washington, at the beginning of America, he was talking about the Illuminati, infiltrating Freemasonry. Freemasonry wasn't always unified and all going towards the same goal. They used the secret societies as a carrier, as a vehicle for their ideas. And then late in the 18th century, they unified the lodges into one. They started merging everything into this one doctrine, into this one mission. And that's where we wound up here today. Like, that's how they're worldwide. They spent hundreds of years sending their agents out all over the world. Like, they started in Germany and spread out from there. And that's why, like, Germany was so important and pivotal in, this whole thing in the early modern world. As far as, like, crafting all this. It began in Germany with the Templars, the Teutonic Knights, and it went on through. Just like, our school system is based on their Prussian school system. That's a Templar design system, folks. Their descendants who had founded Prussia, like, they were the ones who designed it. They designed it to turn everyone into basically slaves for the state who would run off, fight, and die for the state at the drop of a hat. It's the same game being played century after century, decade after decade. Either way, though, I will stop there, folks. Y'all have a good one. Much love and peace out.